Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the fourth annual International Day of Women in Statistics and Data Science Conference. This year's theme is Thriving in Your Environment. We are recording the event and videos will be available on the Caucus for Women in Statistics and Data Science YouTube channel after our volunteers process them. We kindly ask that you post your questions in the Q&A chat. I am delighted to host, and actually I'm chairing session 405, When Should I Retire and Then What? Half of our panelists are retired and half are not retired. Our plan for today is to have the ladies introduce themselves, and then we have some questions. I'm not going to keep the slides up so that we can see all the ladies as they're speaking, but I will put them in the chat so you can follow along with the conversation. So we decided they were going to go in alphabetical order introducing themselves. So Nancy Flournoy, you may start us off.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy Flournoy, and I increasingly feel like I'm considered an old lady. So when you say what's been my career, it goes back a while. I got my doctorate in 1982 from the University of Washington in biomathematics. I worked in cancer research for a long time before transitioning to academia. My transit point was I was the first female program director at the National in statistics at the National Science Foundation. So that was fun. And it did provide me a way to transition sort of mid-career change. I have been then more recently in academia. I've enjoyed it a lot. I've been a former president of the Caucus and done a lot of things along the way. So I think that's enough for a start.
Okay, Nancy Geller.
Hi, I'm Nancy Geller, and I have been the director of the Office of Biostatistics Research for 35 years. I got my PhD before Nancy Flournoy, and I guess from Jessica's introduction, you can tell the people who aren't retired because they have less gray hair. So I'd like to say that I wasn't the first woman anywhere I worked, which is kind of interesting because you would think they would have been prepared.
For you?
For the second woman. And I even was not, there had been a woman at the University of Pennsylvania Statistics Department who was long retired. And when I came at the same time, a woman came in operations research, and that was the same department. Before I went to Penn, I was at the University of Rochester for a couple of years. And I snuck away to go to a meeting in New York. I told them I was visiting my parents. And what I was really doing was attending the first meeting, the formative meeting of the Caucus for Women in Statistics. And the last time I said that, I said I was in a crib, but everybody else was, talking. But I was talking too. I had applied to the Institute of Advanced Study for a position, and I wanted to apply, and it said, name 3 men who know your work. And that was the hooker. And I found out right before the 50th anniversary of the caucus that, was it the 50th or the 25th? 50th? Yes? Okay, I couldn't be. Oh, yes.
It could be.
Great. Tell us your story and we'll tell you which one.
I found out then that I have organizations, memberships on my CV. And as I was preparing to talk at the caucus anniversary celebration, I realized that I never put down the Caucus for Women in Statistics. And so I did. And it has been on my CV ever since then. So to be a feminist early on was very radical. It's kind of funny to think of it that way now. So I didn't want to be known as one of those bra-burning feminists. And so, I kept a lot of it hidden, but here we are. I am what I am, and I'm very happy to be here.
We're happy to have you here. It was the 50th that you spoke at.
Yeah, I know.
Elizabeth.
I was in a crib, I'm telling you.
But you're saying that for
Sure.
25 years at least, you did not put the caucus down.
That's right.
So it's good that you've added it. So I'm Elizabeth Margosches, and I started my statistics career only after I had spent several years at Educational Testing Service writing questions for SATs and GREs and examinations in different fields, which I did with a bachelor's in mathematics, but they kindly sent me to graduate school. So I got a master's in statistics and said, this isn't what I want to do, not statistics, but writing questions, and went off to graduate school, got a Master of Public Health and then a PhD in biostatistics. Wanted to do something for the world and got a job at the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington. And I stayed there for a little over 32 years and left on Labor Day 13 years ago. So I will have quite a bit to talk about, I guess. I did a fair number of things. One of the things that may have affected many people who are in this country was to help with support for the rule that required contractors working on your house to be certified in lead paint removal. And that was justified, particularly if there were children under 6 in that house. And so that was, if you know anything about what lead can do to one's body and one's not intellect or lack of it, it's important. So that's reassuring to me. I actually interacted with Nancy Flournoy on one thing that's in her bio, which is the up and down system. I've forgotten already the name, but anyway, that was an international guideline. And I interacted with Nancy Geller when I was a graduate student getting my master's. So that was during one of her previous jobs.
Okay, my name is Motomi Mori, and I am one of the people who has not retired. Gray hair thing is kind of missed because I've been dying and my hair. So
I was gonna say something about that.
I know. So first of all, I feel very honored to be with these 3 women who pave our way and also have helped the Caucus for Women in Statistics in the past. So I'm very honored to be here with these women that I actually looked up to when I was through my career. So thank you for inviting me. I have a bachelor's degree. Well, I'm originally from Japan. I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. That's why I came to the US, and partly because I had a brother who had a schizophrenia, and I watched him through his teenage years, and I wanted to do something about this. Well, when I was studying psychology, I decided that it's probably not the best occupation for me because I get involved in other people's problems and I also had very analytical mindset. I thought that my advisor, who was psychometrician, thought I'd be much better suited to doing working with the data. So I switched to statistics and biostatistics, and probably that was the best thing that I had done. So I went to got the master's and PhD from University of Iowa. And then I pretty much spent all my professional career doing a cancer research. So I'm collaborative cancer biostatisticians working in early phase clinical trials to translational population science, like a spectrum of the cancer research. So I'm thinking about retirement, and so I'm very excited to hear the wisdom from these three women on the panel.
I'm just dreaming about when I can retire. I'm going to try to share my PowerPoint slides really quickly, maybe. These are the slides that I thought I showed you all at the beginning. So here are introductions and our brief questions. Can you all see them now? That's good. And here are these who are speaking. So we're just going to go through the questions, and I will post them in the chat, and hopefully you can all see them. So our first question is, when and why did you decide to retire or not? Don't all of you talk at one time?
Yes. So first, before talking about myself, I'd like to make the comment that as I was approaching retirement age, or maybe about at retirement age, I was truly shocked by how many of the guys that I considered, to be famous or, well-established statisticians, how quickly they retired. At that time, I mean, I didn't have retirement in my brain. I was, my identity was wrapped up with what I was doing. And it just seemed like as soon as many of the men were able, they were gone in a flash, even though they had established and well-respected careers. I can only say, being in academia that time, that academia is rough on people, but it did make me think about how many of these people that I looked up to really weren't happy in their jobs. And that was a shock to me. In my case, I did not have, I was then past 65, maybe closer to 70. I didn't, still wasn't thinking of retirement. It didn't enter my mind when the university had a budget, the state had a budget shortfall, the university got cut, and they made a, they had an appeal that if you retire this year, they will give you some benefits in terms of cost bonuses to retire, kind of like apparently we're doing with the federal government here a little while ago. So it came out of the blue, and I didn't think about it right away, but my husband said, I'm out of here. And and I'm leaving Missouri. So at first it was a shock to me, and I went home and I slept on it, and I didn't even think about it then, but I woke up the next day and thought, well, why not? And it really didn't, it took me 2 days then to go from not thinking about it all to deciding to retire. The main consideration, well, I knew people that had female people that had retired female statisticians who had retired before, who had expected to stay active in terms of consulting after they retired, only to be very disappointed that they seemed to go from a position where they had an active consulting business to kind of not existing anymore once they retired. And so that was somewhat of a concern, because I have continued to this day maintain my research activities. So it was a concern that I would be sort of dropped off the edge of the universe immediately. And then the second level concern was, how long will it be before I miss having graduate students? Because of course, if you're in research, your graduate students are a great source of inspiration and contribution and activity, and are very important to the whole process. So I thought, will I kind of dry up in terms of what I'm doing very shortly after I retire, because I won't have any new graduate students. So, so those were the things I worried about, and I guess we'll talk about some of those things more later. So I decided to retire because they gave me an offer, and the only thing it looked like the only thing I was hoping for is that I would no longer have the regiment. I wouldn't have to teach. I'd already stepped down as chair of the department, so I wasn't getting the teaching assignments I particularly wanted anyway, and I wasn't getting teaching assignments that were going to lead me to have a stream of incoming graduate students. So I was being kind of funneled off within the department for that reason. So, so there, the decision was made. Elizabeth?
Well, I don't know if people know this. The Environmental Protection Agency, at least at the time when I was in it, was primarily a regulatory agency, but it did have research arms. My understanding is in the current administration, there may be much less research. And I'm not sure what's happened to the laboratories or any of the other parts of the agency. But it does make laws. So, or at least provides laws that people have to follow. So I was in an arm that was supporting that. As I said, I worked on the lead paint in rule and the support for that. And they were planning to expand it to be a rule to remove lead paint from commercial and public buildings and schools. You may not realize it, but the paint that keeps the bridges up, protects the metal, that has lead in it. So that's just an example. Or in a city hall, there's probably been lead in it. It's not so much the current paint. Nowadays, paint doesn't tend to have lead in it, but there are many layers of paint. They don't always remove them all. At any rate, I was approaching 65. When you're a government employee, you have many offers to take classes in what you're going to do when you retire. Or at least how you have to file for retiring and things like that. So I'd taken one or two, but not necessarily expecting to retire. I joined the government rather older than some others because I came after my PhD, which was in 1980, and I had already worked before, so I was not straight out of school. And that meant I was closing on 65 sooner, perhaps, in my career. They decided that instead of finishing the lead paint and commercial buildings activity in that year, which is when I anticipated it, they were going to extend it for another 5 years. And I said, you don't need my support. You're using the same analyses about health that you used for the contractor house, home construction business. So all I'm going to be doing is saying, yes, see what I said before. And so I decided that was the time to do it. The other thing that prompted me was again, here we have a two-person decision. I have a husband who had been in a variety of different positions. He had already retired from one job, but taken another. And he said, I'm older than you. I've got to retire first. So when he decided on that, and I got my Labor Day retirement date, he retired the previous Friday. You may remember Labor Day is on a Monday. And I, being in the old, what's called the old system, the old pension system, excuse me, had a 3-day window of the next month to be able to retire. So that's what decided me.
Do either of you want to say why you didn't retire? Or haven't?
Nancy,
You're muted, Nancy.
Nancy, do you want to say something?
I would. Sorry. My husband had a medical, an appointment at the UMDNJ, that's in New Jersey. And I got this job in Washington, and I was commuting for nearly 10 years when he found a job in Washington also at the same institute as I, due to the fact that there was a division director who happened to be a woman in a two-career couple. And she hired him. I am eternally grateful to Betsy Nabel. I think she is either at Harvard or somewhere in Boston. And so we moved to Washington. And for him, this was a second job. He retired from Rutgers. And so this was a new job, which he didn't have to take, but he decided he was just ready to go. And basically, we both were very happy in our jobs. And so we'd say we weren't the retiring type. But what happened was that Herb developed metastatic prostate cancer. And this was a terrible, terrible time. I was in a support group for cancer caregivers. And most women whose husbands developed metastatic cancer retired to take care of their spouse full time. But I found that my job was my respite. It allowed me to shut out the horrible thing that was going on and concentrate on work. And so I chose to continue. I happen to have a wonderful, understanding boss who happens to be of the male persuasion, go no. And he was very supportive. He was my husband's, he wasn't my husband's supervisor, because I don't think we can supervise both in the government, both members of the pair. But he was tremendously supportive, and he thought Herb was a great scientist, and Herb tried to continue as best he could, and a lot of people didn't even know he was sick. And I always, the thought that came through my head was, when he dies, if I'm retired, I'm going to be alone in this big house. And what the hell am I going to do with myself? So I actually consciously chose not to retire then. And then he did die. That was 2.5 years ago. That was, of course, the hardest thing of my life. And, you know, there's a whole adjustment to being alone, to being single again. I still choose to continue to work because it's my respite. It continues to be my respite. I used to love my job. I'm on furlough. This is a dress rehearsal for retirement. I have plenty to do. I just don't like it as much. I mean, I like to cook and I like to socialize, but you know, there's a lot of stuff I have to do that I don't like to do, like pay bills. I mean, not because the money is so awful for me, fortunately it isn't, but I just don't, I can't get involved in the process the way I can get involved in clinical studies. So, and a few things have happened during this time. I've had to reapply for security clearance, which is a big deal. And I said to my boss, I think they're out to get me. And he said, well, don't worry, because you've had a wonderful career. And I said, whoa, are you telling me something? Are you telling me it's time to retire? And he's, you know, it was through text, but he screamed, no. We think you're doing fine. And, you know, I think you're doing fine and your group loves you. And no, I'm not telling you to retire. And I said, do me a favor. If you think I should retire, please tell me. That's where I stand. Over.
Well, I start thinking, first of all, I moved to St. Jude in Memphis, Tennessee in January 2020, just before the pandemic. My husband was going to think about moving, but wasn't quite sure whether he's going to move. So he wanted like a year to think about it. And of course, pandemic happened. We went in a shutdown in March of 2020. And after that, he was director of study abroad and international programs. So the whole international student abroad program got shut down during the COVID because all the borders got closed. And after the student are able to go abroad, he decided he's just gonna not want to go back to work anymore. So he retired. And he also decided he doesn't want to move to Memphis because, you know, we have a lot of friends and support and neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, when he's used to living. And of course, Portland is very different, you know, political environment than Memphis, Tennessee. And he liked it there. And so he retired and he's kind of waiting for me to retire. And also I, lost my mom this year and my dad a year and a half ago. You start thinking when they, when they're in 80s, their health start going down. So they're very healthy in their 70s. But I start counting how many healthy years I might be able to enjoy and how many years I'm going to have with my husband. You start thinking about maybe I don't want to be working all the way to the end. So that's where I am now, thinking about it.
Okay, so our next question was, how did you, or do you know when it's time to retire? Do y'all have more to add to that from what you've already said? I don't think so either. Okay, so the next one was, what plans for retirement did you make beforehand? How do you fill your time now? What is the best thing about retirement? And if you aren't retiring, what keeps you going? What is the best thing about not retiring? And I will put our very long sentence or 5 in the chat.
Well, I think I already have addressed what plans I had before I retired, which was really none, except that, I had a retirement account that I tried to maximize through my whole career so that I would have money for retirement. That was it. How do I fill my time now? Well, I get up in the morning, I make my tea, and I come into my office and I sit down and go to work. And that's pretty much every day. I work in the morning, and then in the afternoon I do things with my husband, and time seems to evaporate. So I've been fortunate. I mentioned, the things that I was fearful of that might have sort of impeded my productivity. But I was fortunate. I had had a string of a couple very good doctoral students right before I retired, and a couple of young people that I had mentored that I stayed close to, and I've stayed close to all a group of people, and so I have I'm publishing 4 to 6 publications in good journals every year, and each of these is connected to someone or a couple of people that I had relationships with before, and those relationships are growing or continuing. So one reason I get up early, of course, is because some of these people live I'm in the West Coast. So my collaborators are like either on the East Coast or in Europe. So it's not, so at least 2 days a week, I'm up at 7 o'clock in the morning for a meeting with someone for whom it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And that really makes for a nice routine because I'm more of a morning person, my husband's more of a night person, and I have this time to myself or myself and my collaborators, and then I have time with him. So it works out perfectly. And the best thing about retirement, I guess, is just doing that. Because when I was in high school, like my favorite thing to do was to lay on the floor on a rug and do algebra problems. And now, even though I'm publishing in, good statistical journals, to me, the process feels the same. I don't have the pressure. I mean, I know that. I mean, I have obligations, like I'm here today doing this, but I don't have any of this, like, well, if you screw it up, you're good, there's going to be some repercussion that's either going to hurt you or hurt others. It's like if I screw something up, well, okay. And so the pressure is really, really substantially, except self-induced pressure, it's still substantially reduced. And I get to kind of behave like I'm getting down there and just working my algebra problems, and it's great fun. I'm having a great time. I love the pandemic because I'm pretty much an introvert, and I got to interact with people on Zoom plenty, but I didn't really have to talk to many people or do much. I thought it was wonderful. I understand there's a few people like me, but not many. But so it's been enjoyable. And that's the best thing about retirement. Elizabeth, what do you do?
Well, it's a long time now since I retired. I don't know, Nancy, when you did actually.
I retired in 2015. So
oh yes, so it's only 3 years
yeah.
after I. But I think another thing you do with your time is you and your husband travel. And that was actually one of the things that we enjoyed doing. I love to travel, and one of the impetuses for the date when I retired was that about a month later we went away for a month, And that wasn't something I would have easily been able to do while I was still working, although I did do it the year that the International Biometric Conference was held in Australia. And we said, we're not going to Australia for a week. So we went for a month, and I took 3 weeks of vacation and the 1 week of the conference. But I had the vacation, so that was good. That was about 8 years before I retired. One of the other things that was good when I retired was, and that I did make plans for. Okay, one, I had a walking group at work, and I said, I will come back and I'll keep up with what's going on at the office, and I'll see you. And we would walk regularly. Washington has a mall, not a shopping mall, but the National Mall. And we would walk around the National Mall for our walks. And when it was inclement, there was a building that we could walk through. Of course, right now it would be shut. Well, maybe it wouldn't be, because it's partially private businesses. So I don't know what happens in what was the Trade Center Reagan building on 14th Street. At any rate, I haven't been in the district that much lately. But the other thing that I had been doing, I'm also a past president of the Caucus. I had been active in the ASA, and I'd been, for instance, on the Committee on Career Development, and I think I still was at the time when I retired. And the person who was the treasurer for the caucus was also, I believe, the treasurer for the Committee on Council of Sections, governing board for the ASA. And she sort of asked if I would succeed her. So I did that for a few years. So I was doing some service things for the profession, even though I wasn't working in research. That being in a regulatory arm of the EPA, I didn't really get a lot of papers out to do. And that wasn't something I was active in. But I continued with service for a while. I think maybe in 2015, 2016 was about the time I stopped. But I started taking trips, and we enjoyed doing that. And my husband has 2 children that are in rather disparate places. One's in Vermont, and one's who at the time when I retired was in California, and then gradually moved across, first to Kentucky and now in Ohio. So we have grandchildren in those places. So there were reasons to be in other parts of the world than where I am. And that's pleasant. How do I fill my time? I also take exercise classes, and my husband belonged to the Y, but during the pandemic it closed. So we started walking, and we started meeting our neighbors. I'm not an introvert. And I tend to talk to everybody. Everyone on our street teases that I know who everyone is and who has what dogs and so on. And I don't know that many of the children, but still. So when the pandemic, the active closings from the pandemic stopped, I continued in an exercise at a senior center, which I discovered because I had been taking Tai Chi and someone told me about it. I didn't do Tai Chi there because it was too early in the morning and it's too far away from our house for me to get there at a reasonable time. But I persuaded my husband, once the Y opened again and was very expensive, that it would be a lot cheaper for him to come along with me to my exercise class. So we go together. That's something we do 2 times a week. I folk dance. We still have our the walking group that I was in at work, but because of the pandemic, we all started staying home. So now we just have a coffee Zoom once a week. But I still see those people, and that's nice. That means I've kept in touch with them. And it works. What else? So those are things we do.
I should have said I dance ballet twice a week, and we have trails galore right out my door, so there's plenty of walking to do.
Nancy, you didn't mention the conference of the wonderful women statisticians. So there's 5 of us who have been meeting every other week by Zoom since the start of the pandemic. It started as me and 2 others who worked at Sloan Kettering. I didn't even mention Sloan Kettering at the same time, which was before I went to NHLBI. I was at Sloan Kettering.
And you were there when I met you.
Yes, I was there when you called me and said, there's this job in Washington. I think you should apply for it. It's her fault. It's Elizabeth's fault that I've been in this job for 35. No, it's Elizabeth's doing that suggested I apply for this job. Anyway, there were 3 of us at Memorial, and we were friends there, and we started chatting, and then another statistician named Barbara Tilley lives near me, and she collects dollhouses and has bought furniture for dollhouses from all over the world. And I was over at her place and I took pictures. And when I showed them to these other 2, they said, well, where did this come from? And where did how did you get? And I said, I don't know. We're going to have to invite her. And then Susan popped up with, I'd like to invite Nancy Flournoy too. And so it's been 5 of us for years and years and years. So that's something I do. We meet at 5 o'clock on Eastern time on Friday, on Monday, and one reason for that is that I'm at work till 6. And I consider this a professional activity. So to a large extent, I've been on the phone with them from work. And then when I go home, there's not very much traffic. Alternately, I leave at 4:30 and hope I get home at 5. So yeah, that's one of the things that I do. And it's on one level, it's a very serious commitment. Herb and I traveled quite a bit, and a bunch of my traveling was when I was president of ASA. I got to go to Israel and Sri Lanka. Those are the 2 greatest trips of my life. I've been to Europe multiple times. So I've done a lot of traveling. And now I'm not traveling. I had this excuse, which was a cat that needed to be pilled twice a day, who would not take the pills very easily. So he is no longer with us, so I don't have that excuse. And I do have another cat, and I could leave her. Anybody could feed her. But I haven't decided that I want to travel. I do have COVID phobia. If any of you have been face to face with me, you might see I often wear a mask. In fact, one of my neighbors joked that this is Nancy Geller. You don't recognize her unless she's wearing a mask. And I've had probably more COVID shots and potentially the sum of the rest of you. Anyway, I have not had COVID. Probably the only person you know who didn't have COVID. Yay, Elizabeth. Anyway, so I'm working. I'm upgrading my house. And I'm cooking a lot. And inviting people over and socializing, going to other people's houses. And trying to get at least 7 hours of sleep a night. And somehow I don't always succeed. But without having to go to work, I get more sleep and I do more walking. You know, but that's the trade-off? No.
So for me, what keeps me going is I'm a department chair, so I just wanted to make sure all the pieces are in place till I step down. So we are actively recruiting faculty to collaborate in a certain area that really needs a faculty oversight. So that takes quite a bit of time. You know, mentoring the faculty for the promotion, the appointment, and all of that takes time. You know, try to foster the next generation of leaders in the department so that what I was able to build won't fall apart when I'm gone. And I think that's what keeps me going. And my purpose now is to make myself not needed. So that's my sole purpose of my life now. So to the point where I can easily step away and I know the department would just thrive without me. And I think I would miss I am like Nancy Flournoy, I'm at heart an introvert. So I'm forced to go out and socialize and do all these things because of the position that I have now. I think that I think when I retire, I might just be in my cocoon. And I don't know whether that's a good thing for me because, you know, right now I'm forced to be social. I think I just like everybody else said, I do look forward to having more of the regular exercise, having time to exercise and enjoy rather than feeling rushed. And my husband loves to travel, and he's talking about being someplace for 3 months because he wants to learn about culture and he wants to explore the places, and you know, so we'll be doing some of that when I retire, and I look forward that time to come.
Okay, ladies, we have, what do you wish you would have known? And do you have any regrets about your decision? Do you miss your job or wish you had retired? And we have 9 minutes left.
So
And a question. Somebody asked a question.
Yes.
yeah, so I'm going to
yeah.
be very quick here. So I am happy I retired. I do not miss my job. Elizabeth?
I don't miss it either, but I do miss that people are possibly going to lose my agency. So everybody must work for the environment. That's my plug.
Tell me, you can go.
Me? I'm looking forward to retirement, but I have more work to do. So I hope I get it done. Then I can enjoy. And I love Nancy Flournoy's sitting in the carpet and just solving algebra, you know, something that be able to do what I enjoy without someone telling me what to do. That would be nice.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to do it because you can't do anything forever. But I'm not there. Even though furlough is a rehearsal.
Don't look overjoyed to not be working.
Well, shall we-
Okay, Monica asked, do you have suggestions? For women in STEM who have met professional roadblocks in their early 50s.
Well,
To be 50, are you stuck where you are for the rest of your career?
being geographically constrained is a real tough one to overcome. I mean, one thing is being stuck in your position. The other is how, what other ties are upon you in terms of how you can look or seek other resources. I've been fortunate in that when I hit a roadblock, I picked up and moved. Which wasn't easy either because you still have to find a job, etc. But at least you have a lot more. It's just orders of magnitude more possibilities if you are geographically flexible. So if you're geographically tied, which I think is the case in the question, besides, I don't know, my solution's always been to just go pick up my tent and move somewhere else and start over, which has its negatives to it, but at least it got me out from under somebody's thumb or somebody who wanted to have me under their thumb. Does anybody have any brighter ideas? I know even without hitting a roadblock, if you were in the university and you took people who had been there in the same place for, once you get past 25 years and 30 years and 35 years, and you have somebody teaching the same course they've taught for all that time, particularly if they didn't take the summer off, if they taught the summer too, they're just in a rut and they're worn out and nothing's any fun anymore.
So I last year at this meeting, I gave a talk on doing my job for all these years, and one of the lines that just popped into my head now is, doesn't it get old? And it in my case, it doesn't, it hasn't, because it changes over time. Your role changes, your colleagues may change, although in my case, the median time in OBR is 20 years. So a lot of people have stuck with it. But the studies change, and it's very different from teaching because we're
It's
not.
very different from just teaching, yes. The research changes.
I mean, each trial is different. Trials become more.
Question has to do with roadblocks. What do you do when you hit a road? I mean, I don't.
Well, I've been very lucky. I mean, I had my prior boss, I have had 10 supervisors. My ninth, I felt like a little bit like I was walking on eggshells, but he moved up and I moved somewhere else. I was moved somewhere else. And I'm just really lucky. I always said, my second boss was Larry Friedman. I don't know if any of you, he wrote a clinical trials book. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him, but I thought he was the best in the world. But now I'm not so sure because my current boss is pretty damn good. And by the way, I'm still in touch with Larry Friedman. It's, you know, it's the luck of the draw in my case. It's been pretty good. I haven't been kicked around a lot since I was at Rochester. So I've been very lucky. It's because I'm so agreeable.
Elizabeth?
Well, I was thinking of one thing, and that is Umut, who is, I think, currently the president of the Caucus, yes, persuaded me to do a speed mentoring activity in spring with someone who was sort of mid-career trying to change. And I wondered, what could I do, you know, after I've been retired so long? But I realized that part of it may be saying maybe you want to look at other places that do the sorts of things you're interested in doing. And you may say, well, I'm in my 50s, are people going to consider me? Yes, they may, because you do still have experience that people will value and insights that maybe someone straight out of school won't have. So it's worth looking into that. The roadblock isn't probably, it may be in your organization, but you know, don't cut your ties yet, but do look around and feel free to do that and look at what links you have.
I also think you can hide your age. You don't have to give the year you got your degree or the year you got married, or what else was it aside from my birthday? When you got your degree, or necessarily the years you had each job.
Yeah, I know somebody that even got a facelift, so that seriously.
You can,
And then got a job immediately at the University of Rochester.
You don't have to be gray, although apparently that's pretty stylish.
I've been gray since my 20s.
Yeah, I mean, I remember.
I also
I haven't a clue. I never was gray. I haven't a
Our
clue.
time's up, gang.
Tommy wanted to say something. Does she have time?
Yeah, I just wanted to be open to other opportunities, you know, because we tend to stick with just one thing that we know. But statisticians are very well skilled. We can be a project manager. We can be serve on the grant panel, being in charge of grant review, managing. You know, there's a lots of other jobs that our skill can be used. So just, you know, open to other opportunities and not just be too narrow, especially when job market is very tight.
Thank you, ladies. We appreciate you all and enjoy hearing from you. And I've enjoyed working with all of y'all with CWS. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for sharing your
Thank you.
stories. Yeah, bye.
Bye.